What is going on, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Marz Pod with Brad and Echo, as always. And we are back after a great week and a half of Bucks basketball. Last time we talked was right before the playoffs started, and we were both pretty optimistic going into the Bucks series. I know I picked Bucks in 5. Do you remember what you picked?
I think I picked them in 6.
Yeah, we both predicted Bucks to win. Nothing crazy close, but definitely did not expect what we saw. After game 1, the Bucks narrowly squeaked out a win in game 1, and it looked like this is going to be another tough series against the Heat. The Heat are going to give us some trouble, and Giannis struggled, and they're just going to be able to take away Giannis a little bit, and it's going to be a tough series. They won by 2 in game 1, and after that they won by 34 in game 2, 29 in game 3, and 17 in game 4, and finished off an easy sweep of the bubble frauds, as we call them. Bubble flukes, the bubble frauds, the bubble boys, whatever you want to call them. But damn, that felt good, dude. Last year sucked, and it was just good to get that revenge on them and kind of see, like, we've been talking about for like kind of all year of like the Heat just are not the same team that they showed in the bubble. I don't know if they ever were that same team. And they beat us fair and square last year. Like, there's no taking that away from them, but was that really legit? Was that really the team that they were? It seems like it wasn't. And they lost a couple pieces like Jay Crowder and Kelly Olynyk and whatever, and the Bucks got better. So some of this is just the Bucks too being better, but the Heat are, they're almost confirmed bubble flukes at this point, and just good to see us take care of them. So give me your thoughts just quick on the series, and then we'll go through some, players and stuff and what all went down, but your thoughts.
Yeah, obviously that was a really good. Well, I don't want to say it was a well played as in good game 1, but the fact that we didn't play good and we squeaked it out was a good sign. Obviously a huge shot by who else but Chris Middleton.
Chris Middleton is good.
He is, and he's clutch. I don't care what people say. He hits big shots when you need him to. Yeah, and then obviously they just continuously dominated. When they came out, I thought game 3 was going to be the game where, okay, maybe the Heat get one going back home. They didn't play well game 2 at all, and then they just get out there and dominate really the whole game, just real steady.
Yeah.
And pretty much same thing in game 4. So it just felt so good. I didn't expect us to play as well as we did those 3 games, but I wasn't overly surprised, And like we've said, the Drew Holiday edition is just so huge.
And because after game 1, like, you looked at game 1 and it was like, okay, it's gonna be tough. But then there was the other way of looking at it of we shot 5 of 31 on threes and still beat them, and they made 23s.
Yeah,
and it's like they outscored us by 45 from the 3-point line, and we were still able to beat them. And so you were like, well, this might be a tough series because of the way that they're good defensively and whatever, but you're like, it also might be if we just shoot normally, we kill them. And that's basically like what happened after game 2. I kind of was like, as long as we shoot fine, we're gonna beat them pretty handily. And that's just what happened throughout the rest of the series. Is like the only way this thing was close was when the Bucks could not make a single shot. If they were making anything, it was, we're gonna beat this team because we just were way better overall.
Yeah, and it's funny because obviously our philosophy is kind of we'll chuck up threes and plan on hitting them, and then we're going to let them shoot threes, and we think that we'll outshoot them. It was as bad as it could go from that perspective. Didn't hit any threes. They hit a ton of threes. So that was, it just adds again the fact that we still won that game, doing essentially nothing right. We scored like 109, I think.
Yeah.
With an overtime. Other than our defense, which, like, as many threes as we gave up, it worked that game. It really did. So,
all right, let's get into some of the players and how they played. We'll start with Giannis. It wasn't Giannis's best series, but it certainly was not his worst. And he impacted, like, this is what makes Giannis so great. When he's not scoring as easily as he normally is, he's not just putting up an easy 30 every game. He's still able to impact the game in a huge way, in a positive way. Like some guys, like to me, this is what separates him from a guy like Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis, if he's not scoring a ton, like he's not out there being still arguably the best player on the court. He's just kind of there. Giannis is always, like, even when he's not scoring and putting up 30 points, he is making a huge impact, and that's what he did in this series. He was awesome defensively on Jimmy Butler. Jimmy shot 3 of 12 against him in this series, and the Heat as a team shot 13 of 40. So he was just great defensively, and he was awesome as a distributor. He averaged 8 assists per game, only 3 turnovers, 15 rebounds a game. And like I said, the efficiency shooting wasn't there. I mean, 45% from the field, which isn't terrible, but for him, it's not that good. And he was 1 of 16 on threes. So the shots weren't falling, and it was not easy for him to just score it. Not nearly as easy as it normally is for him, but found a way to impact the game in other ways. And so he still was able to put together a good series. And that's what the great players do. Like, they find ways to make an impact, to have a great game, have a great series, despite not being able to score. And one other thing is the free throw shooting. Game 1, 6 of 13. He was missing some down the stretch, and it looked like, oh crap, here we go again. Giannis forgets how to shoot free throws in the playoffs. And then the rest of the series, he went 15 of 20, even with the whole counting thing and 10-second violation, all that crap, which we won't even get into. But even with all that, he was able to put together a solid free throw shooting series, 15 of 20 in those final 3 games. That was awesome to see, get him some confidence and just getting over that kind of mental roadblock, if you will. But yeah, that's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it would just it just shows, as you said, how he separates himself from these other guys. With if he's taken out more offensively, he finds other ways. And the other thing is, and we've said this before, we don't need him shooting perimeter shots. He can, especially with Holiday now. Holiday can get to the rim, throw him one, right by the block or in the paint or something, and he dunks it. And if he can go out there and get you 20, 25 doing that, it's so easy for him, and it's easy points. So
yeah. All right, Chris Middleton, he was awesome this series. I thought he played like the perfect complementary player, either second or third option. It doesn't really matter who the second or third option is on this team, but he played like the perfect complementary player. He averaged 22 and 7 on pretty much 50, 40, 90 shooting. He was 49, 41, 90. And stepped up in game 1 when we needed him to, when Giannis was struggling, and the one game where it was tight, and hits the game winner, hit some shots down the stretch in that game. Just played like the perfect complementary player. Like he was efficient. He came through when you needed. And I mean, what else is there to say? Like, it was just a great Chris Middleton series. Anything else to add there?
No, like you said, that's his role, and he played it well, and that's what you need him to do to be able to win games, win series.
Like, he doesn't need to put up 30, ideally, and again, that's the nice thing, is that our team is just so good that, like, Giannis only put up 24, and Chris didn't even have to. Chris put up 22, and we still were able to sweep them. Like, Giannis is not normally going to put up 24 a game. Like, he's going to be up near 30. Chris, that was pretty much in his average scoring total. And so Giannis normally when Giannis puts up 20, 24 points a game, you're going to need Chris to really step up and put up 25 plus. That wasn't the case here. And he just was able to be efficient. And, again, with Jrue Holiday out there, who we'll get to in a second, it just makes it so much easier for everyone. It takes a little bit of pressure off everyone. And yeah, so Chris, I thought he was fantastic. But now we will move on to Jrue Holiday, who averaged 15, 7 rebounds, and nearly 10 assists, 9.8, and only 3 turnovers, which the assist number, like game 1, I think he only had 3 assists or something. The next 3, he had 15, I think, in game 2. One of those games he had 15. And I think there's another game where he had 11 or something. Back-to-back double doubles for Jrue in those first 3 games. Final 3 games, he had 36 assists and only 7 turnovers, and he didn't shoot particularly well from 3. Like, overall, he shot 48%, very fine. 20% from 3, which is ideally you obviously would need that to come up as we move forward here. But inside the arc, he was awesome. 22 of 37 from inside the arc. He was great driving and finishing. Just needs to hit some more threes. But overall, I was very happy with Jrue, and obviously brought it on the defensive end as well. So, again, the 10 assists is just that's friggin' awesome, because, again, he didn't even have to score a ton. He only averaged 15, but putting up 10 assists in a playoff series is fantastic.
Yeah, I think I want to say it was game 2 where he had 15, and I think he had 7 in the first quarter, and which makes sense because I think that was quarter we scored 46 points. So
yeah, nobody could miss.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, obviously, you need that. 3-point percentage up. That's something we talked about with Bledsoe in the past. Like, his playoff 3-point shooting was just atrocious. They could leave him out there, but a guy like Holiday, he might struggle a little bit. He didn't need to take as many threes. He's dishing out assists, so it's like if he gets back into the rhythm of taking threes consistently, I guarantee he's not going to shoot, nearly that low.
Yeah.
So
And comparing it to like a Bledsoe thing, like Bledsoe would take a lot of dumb threes
yeah,
in dumb moments. At least like Drew's not doing that. Drew,
no.
I think he took 15 total the whole series, which is like 4 per game. That's nothing. He's
He's
not out there killing you, even though he's missing some threes. He's not out there just like, oh my God, this dude is killing us with his shot. And again, he's still even with 20% from three, he almost shot 50% from the field overall because of how good he is inside the arc finishing. So nothing else to say about Drew. The big three was fantastic, and I think that's what really led the way here. Is all three of those guys just played fantastically, and then again, not only on the offensive end but the defensive end where they're locking up the Heat's best players as well. But let's get to Brooke Lopez, who he was kind of underrated, I guess, in this series. Like you don't get to see a ton of Brooke Lopez love out there, but he was awesome. 16 a game, 16 and 7 rebounds, nearly 60% from the floor. And he only took 8 threes in the whole series. And he's been doing this lately, using him much more down low compared to just putting him on the outside and shooting threes like they would in previous years and earlier on in the season. He's been used down low as kind of a post scorer and, throwing some lobs to him and stuff like that. And I love it. I mean, he's been awesome doing that lately. He had 25 on 11 of 15 shooting in game 4. And not even offensively, like take away the offensive stuff. Defensively, Bam and Jimmy combined to shoot 37% against Brooke Lopez. He was forcing Bam to just take, mid-range shots. And I just love how they used him on both ends in this series because he just took away the paint, forced guys to take a bunch of inefficient mid-rangers. And he was awesome. He was a huge difference maker.
Yeah, his presence in the middle was, if you're watching the games, like that was the main reason he was out there, was to just clog up the middle, disturb them. Bam never got into a rhythm like at all throughout the series, like other than maybe like a small stretch in 1 or 2 games. But like you said, taking difficult shots. I mean, Bam would get it kind of just like inside the free throw line and do like an awkward kind of like half mid range, half floater.
Yeah.
It was always like back rim or roll out. So he was, they really tried to keep him down in the middle. Oh, I don't want to say a zone, but like somewhat like floating around there,
Mm-hmm.
And it worked. It worked great.
Yeah, and it's good to see because like I was on this trend for a while too, to like maybe want to keep Brooke Lopez around even, but it's just he's showing that why they're keeping him around. He's showing why he's such an important person to have as that defensive anchor. And then when you're using him this way on offense too, because before they would just have him out there shooting threes, and he's not a great 3-point shooter. He was really good in 2019. Last year he was not that good. This year he was not that good. Like he's borderline 30%, and so you were sitting there going, well, what is he really bringing offensively? And if his defense isn't great, what's really going on? Like how much is he really adding? Well, now, his defense has gotten even like back up to where it was, and offensively using him down low where he's been fantastic. It shows why he's very important still to this team. And I'm just excited to see how they use him in these other series because like against Brooklyn, I'm not sure, we'll get to that later, but I'm not exactly sure how you use him or how you change up your use of him with, based on that different matchup. Because again, like if we get to a team like Philly, he'll be huge to guard, Embiid if Embiid's playing by then, which the whole injury stuff that's going on, I'm assuming he will be if we get there. But like there's certain matchups where Brooke Lopez is going to be huge, and it was awesome to see him play this well in this series. Yes. All right, let's get to some bench guys then. Obviously, and Dante got hurt. We'll talk about that really quick because we haven't talked about that. How do you feel going forward about like the Dante injury? How well do you think we can handle that and move forward without Dante?
I think defensively it hurts you a little more just because you have the depth there with Connaughton and Forbes, obviously, which, as we'll talk about those two. They've both been really good. Forbes, great. But Dante, just the guy that where it's like it sucks to have him out of the rotation, hurts the depth a little bit. But it gives other guys a chance to step up. We talked about, who would get minutes, who would kind of lose minutes. So it's like if Forbes, continues to shoot as well as he has, which I think he can, but it's also hard to shoot as well as has. He has more opportunities to do so, and it gives other guys, more chance, play bigger minutes, which you might need. So
yeah, and like who gets those minutes, it kind of again it depends a little bit on the matchups of who you're playing, but there is depth there. Like that's kind of the one position is that we do have depth. It's not fantastic depth, but it is depth where you have a few guys that you can play and just plug and play on whoever's playing well. And yeah, of all the starters, like ideally nobody goes out, but of all the starters, if you had to pick one that the Bucks are best suited to handle being out, I'd say it's Dante.
absolutely.
He's probably the least important of that starting lineup. Still really young. He was really good defensively, great rebounder. Offensively, inconsistent, but he had his moments. So he will be certainly missed. Like, and again, especially against Brooklyn, where you wanted to be able to run him out there in those lineups with 5 switchable defenders and make things easier on everyone. But if you had to lose someone, I think we're like I don't. There's no situation to me where if the Bucks lose, we're going to say, oh, if we had Dante, we win this series. Like that's just if you're not going to win it without him, I don't think you're going to win it with him.
Yep, I agree.
So I think we're okay moving forward. I think this team can still win a championship without Dante, but he will certainly be missed. So let's move on to the bench and what we saw from them because the bench was fantastic in this series.
Yeah.
You've already mentioned a few guys, but we'll start with Bryn Forbes, who game 1, 0 of 3 from 3, 5 points. The next 3 games, he made 16 threes, 53% from 3, and almost 19 points a game. 6 threes in game 2, 3 in game 3, and then 7 in game 4. He was just lighting it up, and it's just as I said, it's kind of what we wanted / expected Kyle Korver to be. Not that Korver was bad, but Forbes just can come in and like his shooting can change the game. And we never really saw that with Korver. Like he'd come in and hit a couple threes maybe.
Yeah.
But Bryn can really, really, really fill it up. And so I've really grown to love Bryn Forbes this season, and this series just made me love him even more.
Yeah, he was obviously absolutely insane, unconscious in game 2 when he went in there. It's just so funny to see him hitting the shots too, because he'll be like, he misses one shot, then he goes hit. It's when he's like, acting like he's all pissed off. Like
he always looks mad.
Yeah, but no, I love him. He tries to play tough defense. He's undersized, so there's only so much he can do. At the shooting guard, I think he's 6'2". But I love him out there, and like I said, he's a guy where he can fill in, play more minutes now that Dante's out.
Yeah, another bench guy, and real quick on Forbes, like I'd say for the Nets series, if Forbes will be, in my opinion, more of the like if he's not shooting well, you just can't play him a ton role just for this series because it's hard to have him out there on defense against them, and if he's not hitting his shots, you just have to get him out of there.
Yeah, I agree.
A series like the Heat series where you can, you're not losing a ton defensively by having him out there against a team like the Heat. Even if he's not shooting extremely well, you can still have him out there, and but if he is shooting well, it really changes things. But I'm comfortable with them saying, hey, like if Forbes is going a little bit cold, just pull him out for a while because as much as I love him, it's just that's the way you kind of have to play this, play the matchups a little bit. Let's move on. So PJ Tucker, fantastic defensively, doing exactly what we brought him here to do, which is guard the other team's best players and give us that more defensive versatility and help us out defensively. Jimmy Butler shot 2 of 12 when guarded by PJ Tucker in the series. And again, offensively, we don't even need anything from him. And he hasn't given us a ton offensively. He'll hit occasional corner threes, but he's just been so like perfect at what we want him to do just defensively. It was a little bit unsure of we were a little bit unsure of how much he had left in the tank when he got here. Would he still be that good defender? Would the quickness still be there and all that? And he looks really good as a defender and getting in the other team's head a little bit. That's what I like about him. He's physical. He's tough. He's out there doing exactly what we wanted him to do.
Yeah, and he threw Jimmy Butler's game off a lot, in my opinion, especially after game 1. Like Butler was so passive in game 2, and really after that went downhill the rest of the series. So it's like even if it's just like you watch him, you see how good of a defender he is, you know. And I think that's going to be huge. He's going to be huge in this Nets series. I think he's going to get a lot of minutes because you can sacrifice a little offense for his defense, especially when you got Drew, Giannis, Chris, and maybe you have Bryn out there, Connaughton, Brooke, you know, whoever they got run out there, Bobby Portis.
Yeah.
You can kind of sacrifice some offense for that defense. And he bangs on low. He can get you offensive rebounds. You know, Brooklyn's not really going to have anyone to crash the boards other than once in a while DeAndre Jordan, maybe Blake Griffin, who I'm not scared of either of those guys, obviously. So yeah, that's why I really think we can match up. But yeah, he was great on defense.
Yeah, absolutely. With the whole like you said, you can sacrifice that offense a little bit. You don't like any offense you get from PJ Tucker's a bonus. It's not that if he's not playing well offensively, you don't say, "Oh, PJ Tucker sucks." No, he's here to play defense. Any offense is a bonus. Let's move on real quick to Bobby Portis before we move on to the Nets series. Bobby, 11-5 average for this series, 59% from the field, 46% from three. Bobby buckets, as we call him, was getting buckets. Just, I mean, again, his ability to come off the bench and be that scorer that we didn't have any reliable scorers off the bench these past few years. Like George Hill was a good shooter, but he wasn't always like, you couldn't rely on him to get you always points. He was a solid backup point guard, but not a fantastic scorer. Bobby is a guy who can come in and get buckets himself off the bench, which is huge to have. And again, if you need a spark somewhere, like he can give it to you. So I think it was game 4. He was really good in the late in that game or in the third quarter when we kind of started to pull away, hitting threes and stuff off the bench. So good to see Bobby playing well. So now let's move on to the Nets series. It was confirmed yesterday, Bucks Nets. We are getting a full series of it, and I cannot wait because of those first games we got, or these regular season games we got with the Nets were so freaking awesome. And they didn't even have. I think the Nets were always missing one star in those games, weren't they? Because we played them 3 times. The first time they were missing Kyrie. The second time they were missing Harden, and then there's this next 2 times I think they're missing Harden. So Bucks won 2 out of the 3. They won both the home games, and then the Nets won their home game. So, but all 3 games I think were decided by like a few possessions, and it was really, really fun basketball to watch. So super excited for this series. To start out, like just stuff to talk about. Like, can the Bucks big 3 kind of close that gap between them and the Nets big 3? Because that's what everyone's talking about, the big 3 versus the big 3. I think we all agree that just players to players, the Nets big 3 is a little bit better. If the Bucks can close that gap, and if our big 3 can play like they have in this, they have offensively in the Heat series, they're going to be able to make things tough on them defensively. If they can really play with their close to their best and close that gap, I think that makes a huge difference in this series. And regardless of everyone else, I think just closing that gap between Giannis, Chris, and Drew, and Kyrie, KD, Harden will be massive. And again, the fact that we can do it on both ends of the court, our big 3 is way better defensively than their big 3 is. I think they're slightly worse offensively. And just as a team, I think the gap between the Bucks and Nets offensively is smaller than the gap between them defensively, which is what gives me so much confidence in this series. And it's the thing that made me be like, as I'm kind of thinking about my prediction for it, I just keep coming back to that. Like, yes, they're better than us offensively, but I think that gap is not as big as our advantage over them defensively.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think the biggest thing with the defense is our ability to match up. You got Tucker, Holiday, and Giannis that can pretty much take down that big 3. Well, I shouldn't say take down, but like hopefully maintain them. Match
make it tough. Just make it as tough as you can.
Yeah, and you can still throw Middleton at him. You can throw Connaughton on there a little bit just to stay in front of him. Portis, really, if you need. So just like you have guys to try to slow them down, get them out of their rhythm. And as we saw, I think the first game they lost to Boston. I mean, I want to say KD had over 40 and Harden had 40. Like those 3 combined for like 95, and they still lost. So it just goes to show, like that was a game Kyrie hardly scored. Number one, they don't stop anyone defensively. Boston scored a ton, which we can do if we play our game right. And Number two, even when their guys have a great night, at least two of them, they're beatable. So
Yeah. And again, we're way better than Boston. So it's like if
yeah,
Boston can beat them like that, we can certainly do it.
absolutely.
And another thing you touched on that, you kind of touched on this earlier, we should be able to get a pretty big advantage on the offensive glass because the Nets have the lowest defensive rebounding percentage among all playoff teams, and the Bucks have the second highest offensive rebounding percentage. And the Celtics were able to do it. They were really able to crash the boards, and the Nets have been susceptible to that. They don't have a ton of great rebounders on that team, and we should be able to get a lot of second chance points as we have been lately with offensive rebounds. And like going off of that with this not having a ton of size, like who guards Giannis? I mean, we've been talking about this all year. Giannis should be able to get his in this series because KD can't really like he can play decent defense on him, but he's not going to stop him. DeAndre Jordan's not stopping him. Jeff Green's not stopping him. Blake Griffin's not stopping him. There's nobody on this Nets team that can stop Giannis. They don't have a ton of really good. They don't have many at all really good defenders. And so even if you want to put up the wall to stop him, as teams do, it doesn't work the same if you don't have actual good wing defenders. That's what the Heat had. That's what the Raptors had. They just could throw out they had four guys on the court that were really, really good defenders. And the Nets simply don't have that. And so I'm pretty confident. Like, how many points per game do you think Giannis averages in this series? Because I'm pretty confident he can get up to like 33, 35.
Yeah, I definitely would say 30, but I would not be surprised if he averaged 35, just because, like I said, with him against the Heat, if he's not having a good game, feasting down low, that's what he can do, and that's what I think he will do. Offensive rebounds, putbacks, and just using him to your advantage. Like if they got KD on him, bully him down there. Like KD can't hold him.
Yeah.
He scored on DeAndre Jordan all season. He scored on Blake Griffin. So they just got to keep doing that.
And if they want to send a ton of guys at him, I mean, we have much better shooters around him than we did in the past couple of years. That's another huge advantage. And as we, going back to the whole thing, the Heat, Bam Adebayo could at least handle him like one-on-one a little bit. Nobody on the Nets can do that. And so for them to stop Giannis, they're going to always need to send 2, 3, however many guys at him, which leaves shooters open. Like every single time Giannis gets stopped, I feel like a shooter's going to need to be open at that time. And against the Heat, there were times where Giannis could at least be contained by just one guy, and then you don't leave anyone open. And the Nets just simply don't have that guy. So Giannis should really get his. Chris and Drew are going to need to both be, elite, really, really, really good. Because if any of them are off their game, if Chris or Drew is just like, I don't want to say off a little bit. They can be off a little bit, like just barely. But if they're decent or like not that good, you're going to need to like that's going to be that's going to be probably the difference in the series because that big three is just so good offensively that you're going to need to match them. And Giannis should get his. Chris has to step up. Drew has to step up. That three has to at least play well for us to be in this series. And then you're going to need a couple other guys to step up, Bobby, Bryn, Brooke, whoever. But just having our big three play well is going to be kind of like the bare minimum. Like that has to happen. If Chris struggles, that's probably making the difference in the series. If Drew really struggles, which I probably won't happen because Drew doesn't shoot a ton. Drew isn't like the type of player that'll kill you sometimes. But I mean, more on Chris. Like if Chris really, really struggles in this series, like we're probably not winning. We're not winning the series, and that's going to be the difference maker. So need Drew to really step up.
Absolutely, and I think they can.
Yeah, I mean that I'm not doubting them. It's just this has to happen. It's what needs to happen for them to be in this series. Mm-hmm. And then defensively, multiple ways they can go with defending Kyrie, Harden, KD, and Joe Harris, and then all the matchups. I don't know how much. Like I don't know if we need to put this guy and this guy, this guy and this guy. They're gonna probably put a number of different guys, like different combinations of guys on different, on Kyrie, on KD, on Harden. So I don't know how much it matters because there's multiple guys on our team that can guard each of those guys. I think Drew can guard Kyrie and Pat can guard Kyrie. I think Harden can be defended by, Drew, Pat, Tucker, or Chris. KD can be defended by Giannis, by Chris, by PJ. Like there doesn't need to be a set this guy and this guy, this guy and this guy.
No.
I'm interested to see who they start and just who they play the most, like what lineup. Because you could go, what they went with in game 4 of Drew, Pat, Chris, Giannis, Brooke, which leaves a little bit of that, Pat in the defensive backcourt is a little bit of, iffy. You could put PJ in and go Drew, slide Chris to the 2, Drew, Chris, Giannis, PJ, Brooke. Then you have, those are all pretty good defenders. I don't know. Or you could even, not play Brooke at the 5 and put someone else at 5. But the way Brooke's playing, I'm guessing they'll stick with him at the 5. I really don't know what to expect. And again, I don't know if that's like, it's not a bad thing that they just could go a number of different ways. I don't think it necessarily matters that much.
Yeah, I think they probably roll out the typical 5 other than, like whoever starts or Dante.
Mhm.
But I think the biggest thing is gonna be who are they playing down the stretch
Yeah, who
because
closes? Yeah.
because, you know, I feel like Brooklyn kinda plays Jeff Green down the stretch, maybe. I don't know too well. I haven't watched them a ton. I mean, I have, but I haven't. So it's like, if they don't have DeAndre Jordan out there, you don't need to have, um, Brooke out there. Even if he is out there, you almost don't need to have him. But you can also use Brooke to your advantage, because then they have to match up with him just as much
Yeah.
as he would have to match up with somebody. And DeAndre Jordan's not going to kill you, so Brooke can stay with him in the pick and roll.
Yeah. And again, having Brooke there for like offensive rebounding and stuff, because that should be a huge advantage that we can get.
Hmm.
That will be big. So and then, whoever, like, as I said, multiple guys can guard multiple, anyone. There's different combinations you can use. No matter what happens, just make things as difficult as possible on that big 3. And then whoever is not guarding that big 3, just chase Joe Harris around. It's probably going to be either Chris or Pat, I'm guessing, for the majority are going to be chasing Joe Harris. In that, Joe Harris is kind of that Duncan Robinson type player. He's a little bit better, creating his own shot, but it's going to need to be that same type of thing. And those guys were great doing it after game 1 in the Heat series. They've been really good at being able to limit Duncan Robinson, chase him around, make things difficult. Particularly Chris has done a really good job on him. So if you put, Pat on Harden or whatever, then Chris needs to be that guy chasing Joe Harris. And if you put Chris on him and Pat, make things difficult as possible in the big 3 and chase Joe Harris. That is, if they hit a ton of tough shots on us, you're going to have to live with it. There's some 3 of the best offensive players in the game are, at their positions that the game has ever seen. So there might be times where you're just like, you know what, tip your hat. They might win a couple games like that. You just have to hope they don't do it 4 times out of 7. But ideally, you just make things as difficult as you possibly can. And we have the personnel to do that. That's what makes me happy, or that's what makes me confident going into this series, is that we have the guys to do it. This isn't just hopefully we can make things hard. No, we can do it. We have excellent defenders that they don't have. So give me your prediction for this series.
I'm gonna stick with what I said at the start and go Bucks. I think I said in 7. Bucks in 7. I don't see this going anything other than 6 or 7.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
There's almost no way to me.
yeah. Like it's just so unlikely. But I just, if we lose to them and they just played really good, like you said, you tip your cap and you have to live with it. They have 3 amazing players. But I really do think we have the ability, and I think we have a little bit of the upper hand with the matchup. So I got us in 7.
I think I'm gonna go. I want to say Bucks in 6, and I know it's the saying and all that and whatever. Like, I want to actually say Bucks in 6, but I've been debating on this one for so long that how much I've debated on it, I feel like I just have to have it. It's gonna go 7, and I keep coming back to, as I said, the gap between us offensively. They're slightly better offensively, but defensively, the gap is much, much bigger than it is offensively between the teams. So I'm giving the Bucks a slight advantage. I think they can get the advantage on the boards, and nobody can stop Giannis as long as Chris and Drew play well and a couple other guys step up. I think we get it done in 7. A 7th game in Brooklyn would be so intense, but
Yeah,
I
it'd be
think
tough.
they can get it done because I trust our guys. Like, these are I know KD's really good, Kyrie's really good, Harden's really good, but like I trust us, especially defensively, like just as much as those guys that I, in general trust. I trust this team, and I think a game 7, I think they can get it done. It would be again, these games I feel like are all going to be close. Like I don't know how, I don't see the Nets getting blown out because of just how much talent they have, and the way we're playing, I don't see us getting blown out by anyone.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's going to be 7 tough, single digit games that it's going to come down to a few plays down the stretch. Just making things difficult on them. But yeah, I'm extremely excited and nervous at the same time.
Well, glad to hear you switched over the Bucks. It's not to say, I know that you said you want to pick them, and it's super close. Like I've said, like we've said, it's going to be such a good series. Going to be so close. It's so hard, but
yeah,
we'll
because I did pick the Nets. I think I picked the Nets to win it all in my playoff predictions.
Yeah,
I had Nets in 7 over the. Did I pick Nets in 7 the Bucks? Yeah, Nets in 7. But again, I mean, the Bucks sweeping the Heat did give me like, okay, like this team looks a lot better, looks legit, and so that it was enough. And Coach Budenholzer making, we didn't even talk about him. He was fantastic in that Heat series, putting Giannis on Jimmy. Defensively, just did some awesome stuff, and using Brooke Lopez in the paint, all that. The rotations were way better. He deserves major props for that because he was really, really, really bad last year, and he came back and had a very good series. He outcoached Spo, and again, that's another thing that gives me so much confidence going in, moving forward is like he can be a really good coach in the playoffs, and so
yeah, he stepped up.
Yeah, seeing that has made me much more comfortable, much more confident, and I don't know. I'm picking us in 7. I got to do it. Bucks in 7. But yeah, that does it for this episode. Did a little Bucks Heat recap and a Bucks Nets preview. Game 1 is Saturday at 6:30. I don't think the other games have been announced yet, the schedule.
Mm-hmm.
But we know Game 1 is at 6:30. We know it's going to be an intense, difficult, entertaining series, and we are both very much looking forward to it. But that does it for this episode. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time. Go Bucks.